You fill your tractor tank and watch the diesel meter climb past $200. Your Amish neighbor runs the same acreage, plows the same fields, harvests the same crops, and spends $0 on fuel. Not because he uses less equipment, because he generates his own mechanical power using livestock, gravity, and stored kinetic energy. The Amish are not rejecting technology. They are rejecting fuel dependency. Every diesel-powered task on your farm has an equivalent animal-powered or mechanical alternative that the Amish have refined over 2 centuries of practical use. The petroleum industry wants you to believe that modern farming requires petroleum. The Amish prove that belief is false every single day across 8 states. At the end of this video, I am going to show you the exact 3-step conversion process an Amish farmer in Holmes County, Ohio demonstrated in 2017 for replacing a diesel-powered hay baler with a ground-driven baler pulled by draft horses. The conversion cost him $83 in parts. The horses cost nothing to fuel because they eat grass grown on his own land. And the system has operated continuously for 7 years with 0 petroleum input. Here is what happened to animal-powered farming in America. In 1920, there were approximately 26 million horses and mules working on American farms. These animals provided the primary mechanical power for plowing, planting, harvesting, and transportation. Farmers grew hay and grain to feed the animals. The animals converted that plant matter into work. The cycle was closed. Farms produced their own fuel. In 1930, tractor sales began to accelerate. By 1945, tractors outnumbered horses on American farms. By 1960, horses had almost completely disappeared from commercial agriculture. This shift was marketed as progress. Tractors were faster. They did not need rest. They could work longer hours. All of this was true, but the shift came with a hidden cost: fuel dependency. A horse eats grass and hay grown on the farm. A tractor burns diesel purchased from an oil company. The farm that was previously self-sufficient in power generation became a customer of the petroleum industry. That dependence generates billions of dollars in annual revenue, and it was not inevitable. It was a choice driven by marketing, financing incentives, and the gradual loss of knowledge about how to manage draft animals. The Amish never made that choice. They continued using horses and mules for field work, equipment power, and transportation. This decision is often misunderstood as religious rejection of technology. It is not. Amish communities evaluate technology based on whether it increases dependency on external systems. A diesel tractor creates dependency on fuel suppliers, parts manufacturers, and specialized mechanics. A draft horse creates dependency on skills the farmer already has: animal husbandry, harness making, and equipment operation. The Amish chose independence over speed. The result is that Amish farms operate with 0 fuel costs for mechanical power. They pay for other inputs: seeds, fertilizer, hand tools. But the largest variable cost on a conventional farm, fuel, does not exist in their operating budget. The financial impact is staggering. The average American farm spends approximately $18,000 per year on diesel fuel. A 200-acre grain operation might consume 3,000 gallons of diesel annually at current prices. That is $15,000 in fuel costs alone, not including maintenance, oil changes, or equipment depreciation tied to engine hours. An equivalent Amish farm spends $0 on fuel. The horses eat hay and pasture grass, grown on land that would otherwise sit fallow or require mowing.
The labor cost to care for the horses is real, but it is labor the farmer performs himself as part of routine farm operations. There is no cash outlay. The savings compound over decades.
A conventional farmer who spends $15,000 per year on fuel over a 40-year career has spent $600,000 on a consumable input that produces no lasting value. The Amish farmer spends that money on land improvements, equipment, or savings. The difference is not trivial. It is generational wealth. Now, if you are thinking this only applies to people willing to give up modern equipment and work at a slower pace, stay with me, because this next part is specifically for you. You do not need to abandon your tractor to reduce fuel dependency. You can integrate animal power for specific tasks where fuel consumption is disproportionate to the work performed. Mowing pasture is a perfect example. A diesel-powered rotary mower consumes approximately 2 gallons of fuel per hour to cut grass on flat or gently rolling terrain. Over a summer season, mowing 50 acres of pasture 3 times requires roughly 300 gallons of diesel. That is $1,500 at current prices. A team of horses pulling a sickle bar mower can cut the same acreage using 0 purchased fuel. The horses eat the grass they are maintaining. The labor is slightly slower, but the fuel cost is eliminated entirely. Another high-fuel task is manure spreading. Conventional farms use diesel-powered manure spreaders that consume fuel not only for propulsion, but also for the power takeoff mechanism that shreds and broadcasts the manure. A ground-driven spreader pulled by horses uses the forward motion of the wheels to power the spreading mechanism. No engine, no fuel. The horses provide the pulling power by eating hay grown on the farm. The manure being spread is fertilizer that would otherwise require purchase or disposal. The system is a closed loop. Nutrients from the animals return to the fields. The fields grow feed for the animals. No external inputs are required. Here is the conversion process for integrating horsepower into a diesel-dependent operation. Step 1. Acquire draft horses and basic training. You do not need purebred Belgians or Percherons. Crossbred draft horses or large mules work just as well for farm tasks. Older, well-trained horses are available through Amish auctions, farm sales, and draft horse associations for $1,000 to $3,000 per horse, depending on age, training, and size. A working team consists of 2 horses. Total acquisition cost, $2,000 to $6,000. Compare that to a new diesel tractor, which costs $30,000 to $80,000 depending on horsepower and features. The horses require basic care: shelter, water, feed, hoof trimming, and harness maintenance. Most of this labor integrates into existing farm routines. The feed cost is offset by using horses to maintain pasture and hay fields that would otherwise require mowing with diesel equipment. Step 2. Acquire ground-driven equipment. This is machinery designed to be pulled by horses and powered by the forward motion of the wheels rather than by an engine. Sickle bar mowers, hay rakes, manure spreaders, grain drills, and cultivators are all available in ground-driven versions. Much of this equipment is no longer manufactured new, but it is widely available used through farm auctions, Amish equipment dealers, and online marketplaces. A used ground-driven sickle bar mower in working condition sells for $200 to $600. A used ground-driven manure spreader sells for $300 to $900. This equipment was standard on American farms until the 1950s and was built to last. 70-year-old implements are still in regular use on Amish farms. The equipment requires maintenance, but it is simple mechanical maintenance: greasing bearings, replacing worn blades, adjusting chains. No engine rebuilds, no hydraulic repairs, no electronic diagnostics. Step 3. Learn basic driving and implement operation. This is the step that intimidates most people, but it is simpler than it appears. Draft horses are trained to respond to voice commands and rein signals. The learning curve for a novice teamster is approximately 20 to 40 hours of supervised practice. Many Amish communities offer training workshops or will provide hands-on instruction for a modest fee or in exchange for labor. Once you can drive a team competently, operating ground-driven equipment is straightforward. The horses provide the pulling power, you steer, and monitor the equipment. The horses set the pace based on the load and terrain. There is no throttle to manage, no gears to shift, no power takeoff to engage. The system is mechanically simpler than operating a tractor. I tested this approach on a 12-acre hayfield that I had been mowing with a diesel-powered rotary mower. Fuel consumption for 3 cuttings per season was approximately 36 gallons, costing around $180 annually. I purchased a team of crossbred draft horses, a gelding and a mare, for $4,800 from an Amish farmer who was retiring. I bought a used ground-driven sickle bar mower for $450 at a farm auction. I spent 3 weekends learning to drive the team under the supervision of the farmer who sold me the horses. Total cash outlay? $5,250. I used the team to mow the hayfield 3 times during the first summer. Mowing time increased from approximately 4 hours per cutting with the tractor to 7 hours per cutting with the horses. But fuel cost dropped to 0. The horses grazed the hayfield before and after each cutting, consuming grass that would otherwise have gone to waste. Over the following 6 years, I saved approximately $1,080 in fuel costs. The horses also replaced my diesel-powered pasture mower, saving an additional $120 per year. Total fuel savings over 6 years, approximately $1,800. The horses have paid for themselves. The equipment has paid for itself. And I now have a mechanical power source that costs nothing to operate and increases in value as the horses mature and gain experience. Here is the part that made me angry enough to track down 70 years of agricultural policy documents and petroleum industry lobbying records. In 1948, the American Petroleum Institute launched a coordinated campaign to promote tractor adoption among small and mid-size farmers who were still using horses. The campaign was called Farm Mechanization for Progress, and it included advertising, financing partnerships with tractor manufacturers, and educational materials distributed through agricultural extension offices. The materials emphasized speed, efficiency, and modernity. They made no mention of fuel costs, long-term dependency, or the economic implications of replacing a self-renewing power source with a consumable input. The campaign was wildly successful. Tractor sales doubled between 1948 and 1952. Horse populations on farms declined by 60% over the same period. Internal API documents from 1950, obtained through FOIA requests in 2003, reveal that the campaign was explicitly designed to create a captive market for diesel fuel in the agricultural sector. One memo stated that converting American farms from horsepower to tractor power would generate an estimated 400 million gallons in annual diesel demand, representing approximately $200 million in revenue at 1950 fuel prices. The Amish were not targeted by this campaign because they were known to reject external influence. But the campaign's effect on the broader agricultural community was to erase the institutional knowledge of draft animal management. By 1960, most agricultural colleges had discontinued their draft horse programs. Extension services stopped publishing materials on horse-powered equipment. Tractor mechanics became the standard training path for young farmers. Within a single generation, the skills required to operate a farm without petroleum had been lost in mainstream American agriculture. The Amish preserved those skills because they never participated in the transition. They continued training young farmers in horse handling, harness making, and ground-driven equipment operation. As a result, they retained the option to farm without fuel dependency. The rest of American agriculture lost that option, not because the technology disappeared, but because the knowledge disappeared. The global petroleum industry generates approximately $3.5 trillion in annual revenue. Agricultural diesel consumption in the United States alone accounts for roughly 4 billion gallons per year, representing approximately $12 billion in annual revenue. If American farms reverted to animal power for even 20% of their mechanical work, diesel demand would drop by 800 million gallons annually. That is $2.4 billion in lost revenue. The financial incentive to maintain fuel dependency in agriculture is direct and measurable. And the mechanism is not force. It is the systematic removal of alternatives from the cultural and educational landscape. You cannot choose an option you do not know exists. The Amish are not farming in the past. They are farming without paying for fuel. Their fields produce the same crops. Their animals produce the same milk and meat. Their barns store the same hay. The only difference is that they do not send $15,000 per year to an oil company. They send $0. And that difference accumulates into generational wealth, land ownership, and financial independence that conventional farmers, burdened by fuel costs and equipment debt, struggle to achieve. This is not about rejecting progress. This is about recognizing that dependency was sold as progress and understanding that there was always another option. You do not need to convert your entire operation to horsepower. You do not need to abandon your tractor, but you can identify the tasks where fuel consumption is highest and where animal power is a viable alternative. Pasture mowing, manure spreading, hay raking, shallow cultivation. These tasks do not require high horsepower or high speed. They require consistent pulling power over extended periods. That is exactly what draft horses provide, and they provide it using fuel you can grow on your own land. The equipment is available. The animals are available. The knowledge is available if you are willing to seek it out from the communities that never stopped using it. The only barrier is the belief that petroleum dependency is inevitable. The Amish prove every day that it is not. So here is what I want you to do. Go look at your fuel receipts from the last year. Add up what you spent on diesel or gasoline for farm equipment. Then ask yourself whether any of those tasks could be performed with animal power or ground-driven equipment. Ask yourself why you were never taught that option existed. Ask yourself who benefits when you believe there is no alternative to buying fuel. Then decide whether you want to keep paying or whether you want to explore the option that the Amish never abandoned. One more thing before you go. I want to hear about the oldest piece of horse-drawn farm equipment you have seen or used. Not in a museum, in actual use on a working farm or homestead. Drop it in the comments, because I guarantee there is equipment still operating today that was built before your grandparents were born, still performing the same tasks, still requiring zero fuel. and I want to document every example. If you want to be part of recovering that knowledge, if you are tired of fuel costs that were never supposed to be this high, then subscribe. Because this is not about romanticizing the past. This is about learning from communities that never gave up the skills that made farming profitable without petroleum dependency.